Nereye sınavdık?
Good evening, anybody that's out there watching on our Zoom YouTube live stream. We're just getting ready to call the meeting to order. So if you'll just be patient for one more second, we'll get started. Here's Gary added, so.
Good evening. Got anyone that's
online. Thank you for attending the board meeting. So we'll go on, call the meeting to order. Today's September 2, regular board meeting. Roll call.
Bessie Allen,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Tommy
Here.
McCabe,
Here.
Gary Grandson,
Here.
Ramona Norwood here, Mark Little, Madam Board President, there is a quorum and we proceed with the meeting.
Did I hear Gary?
He's on, yes.
He's online. Okay. Thank you, board members, for calling in, being online. We'll go on. The adoption of the agenda. Mr. Oscar, can you go through the agenda?
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, those in the audience virtually listening. Tonight on our agenda, it's a fairly short agenda. I have a brief superintendent's report and then a longer report as far as where we are on the return to school, the actions we've taken and what we're proposing. We have the consent agenda, which is the routine items that come up. Adoption of a policy advisory, which would be the second read, approval of board minutes and vouchers, the qualified evaluators, which is a routine item, early acceptance of a kindergarten student that's being recommended, who's just a little bit underage to come in, and then some of our club sponsors, and because even though we're doing things virtually, we are still doing clubs, organizations online and through other ways. So we do have club sponsors and others participating. There's no old business, and then under new business is the decision about second quarter of this school year. Are we going to remain virtual, online? Are we going to go hybrid model, or what might that look like? And then discussion about insurance coverage for the devices that are being checked out to students. And then the board needs to choose a delegate for the ASBA. It's virtual. I mean, everything's going to be online, but the voting member delegate for the delegate assembly for the ASBA conference. Executive session if necessary, and then we have some personnel items, resignation due to certificate expiring, and then some new hires. So Madam President, members of the board, I would recommend approving the agenda or adopting the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Board members. Agenda.
I'll go ahead and motion to approve the agenda as read.
Motion second to adopt the agenda.
Tommy, motion to approve.
A second.
Ramona seconds the motion. Any other discussion? If none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Tommy and Gary, or can you? We're voting on the adoption of the agenda.
Okay. Aye.
Okay, Gary says aye. Tommy, did you vote?
Oh,
Tommy?
you guys are breaking. I didn't hear nothing.
Well, there was a motion and a second, and we're just voting on the agenda. Can you hear Tommy?
Couldn't you?
One extension or?
Says he can't hear.
Yeah, he's still connected, but he's having a hard time hearing on his end.
He must
so.
be out of town or something. Okay, 3 in favor. And I'll just count Tommy on abstention. Motion is carried.
Madam President, members of the board, the next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Just briefly, again, this report's just for information only, not really for discussion or action. I included the student enrollment numbers. We're at 1,010 students, so we are down a little bit from August 3rd. Due to 10-day drops, and we've had a couple students who have withdrawn and actually moved down to the valley or moved to other places, but our enrollment actually at 1010 is still a little bit higher than we projected it to be this year with all the COVID issues. So it's, and the high school enrollment is actually up from what it was last year, and they're still getting new enrollments. Middle school is down a little bit from where we ended last year, but they're still about where they were in prior years. The one that's really down right now is the elementary enrollment, and that a lot of that is at the preschool, kindergarten, first grade level. We just don't have the enrollments there. But overall, enrollment's holding pretty good at 1010 right now. And then just a reminder that the 10-day rule is still in effect. So 10 consecutive absences, students are dropped. So it's really important that students, even those that aren't participating online through the Zoom and Google, are checking in daily and at least getting their attendance recorded. So that's important. And just a note too, normally when it comes to attendance, we would be doing home visits for those students who have, we haven't had contact with, but because of the COVID issues, we're not doing home visits right now. So we are doing things by mail, phone calls, and in other ways, but we currently are not doing home visits. And then human resources update, transportation director, we've narrowed all that down. The team's made a selection and we'll end up bringing that to a special board meeting. There's some procedural steps that would have to be followed. We're still looking for elementary principal. We've not, I don't believe, had applicants in this second round. And we're still, even though right now we're not having athletics, we're still looking for an activities director, athletic director. And I believe we did have one applicant for that. I don't know if we've had interviews yet or not, but there is an applicant. We're always looking for substitute teachers, regular, which is the bachelor's degree, or the emergency substitute teachers. We do still need 2 special education or exceptional student services in the resource. Those are at the elementary. And I believe we've got an applicant there too, and we're going through that process. Middle school still needs an art teacher and an instructional coach. And then we're still looking for custodians, substitute custodians, health aides, bus drivers, bus driver trainees, substitute bus drivers. Those are just kind of open. And there are some later on the agenda, there are some new hires in those areas that have gone through the selection process. Facilities, we did a report last board meeting about the housing renovations, and that's still ongoing. The only big thing there is there was a pretty large water line break in housing last Friday that our maintenance department was able to find it, dig it up, repair it. We didn't have to call anybody in. It made kind of a muddy mess for a while, but everything's cleaned up and back to normal. So Congratulations to facilities for getting that taken care of. The middle school roof replacement's ongoing. We're going to be starting renovations to the restrooms at the middle school. And we now have, I'll actually be talking about this later, the automated temperature checkers when you enter the buildings. And then again, facilities is doing great things with trash. The trash collection's going well, and we've now started recycling as well as just trash. So all the units in housing have 2 bins. One's blue for recycling, and then the one is black for the trash. And they go around. Trash pickup is Tuesdays and Fridays, and recycling pickup is Wednesdays. So they're making great use of the new garbage truck that we purchased at the beginning of this year. And let's see, just some other general updates here. The ASBA Law Conference is not in person, it's all online. The dates are the same. Registration was open, and as mentioned when we adopted the agenda, there is an agenda item to pick the board member and an alternate who would represent Pinyon at the delegate assembly, which is on September 12th, and that's a Saturday. It's all online, so I believe it's probably through Zoom how they're going to do that one. The fall NAFIS conference was changed to online event, same date, September 21st to 23rd. So if you're available, and the registration for NAFIS is free, so if you're available on those dates, you can sign up and join in from wherever you are. The Navajo County meeting from ASBA is definitely online now. That's going to be another Zoom meeting, and that's Tuesday, October 20th in the evening. So if you're available on that day, we can get you registered and you can sign in for that and participate. The ASBA annual conference, the one in December, is still listed to be an in-person one down in Phoenix, but we'll see if that continues or not, or if they move that one online as well. And then the NISA, the National Indian Impacted Schools Association. I got an email from Brent Gish, the director, and that is currently on hold because they're still trying to decide if it's going to be online or in person in Las Vegas. Las Vegas has some pretty strict restrictions about group sizes, and the conference doesn't really meet the group size, so they're trying to determine if they can have an in-person event or if that one's going to be switched to online or not. So, and I think there's also, not related to NISA, but I think there's also some discussion about whether the big rodeo and everything is going to be going on too. That's usually at that same time. And they've already canceled the big cowboy Christmas thing that goes on during that time. So things are still very much not back to normal in a lot of areas. So I guess, as I mentioned before, most of my report's actually going to come in the next agenda item, not here. So, but if there's any specific questions here, we can answer them. But my long report is actually the next agenda item. Mark, did you join us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Chris, Tommy here again. Switch to different device. How do I sound?
You sound good. We can hear you just fine. Can you hear us?
You sound like you're in a recording studio.
Well, I kind of am. I've got microphones set up and cameras set up, and we're trying to broadcast the whole thing. I've got so many screens open, it's hard to keep track of what I'm doing, so.
Yeah. Okay, you're on mostly KT in. You have to speak up loud. Okay, thank you. Any question on these online, the only one I would have is the NAFIS. So it starts on a Monday instead of the Sunday. Monday is the 21st and ends on 23rd. Okay.
We'll double check that, but yeah, I believe so. It isn't full days. It's like 2 half days and then I think it's 2 half days in the afternoon, and then the last day is going to be some sort of virtual lobbying kind of a thing where we contact legislators
But
or
you
their
gotta
staff.
arrange those ahead of time. If you're gonna make that kind of appointment. Oh, I think that's gonna be hard. If we could,
You have to talk in the microphone louder. People won't be able to
if
hear.
we could, like with the ASBA, what's the name of the group that we're in?
Asia.
Asia.
Yeah, Asia, we're actually having a meeting next week. The board of directors for Asia is having a planning meeting next week. So we'll be talking about how to set all that up.
Yeah, I think, and maybe suggest that we have, maybe a Zoom meeting with all of our Arizona delegates, if possible, maybe their staffers, for about a couple of hours or something.
Mhm.
And instead of trying to do this one by one, it's not gonna be fun that way. Okay, none? Moving on.
I just, Tommy here, I just got a couple of questions. First question was the AIA. What's their plans on getting sports back on? What's the word from them? Also, I know I got an email in regards to the elementary principal. It got me thinking, and I'm just wondering why the assistant principal wasn't given a chance. Because if you look at his duties and responsibilities, I think it was number 2 or number 3 of his duties and responsibilities. It says that it was him that has to step in the shoes of the absent principal. So I'm just wondering why he isn't given the chance, or why that was. And then the third one is, I know I'm kind of speaking as a board and as a parent from here on this item, or on this question I have. I know one of the Navajo teachers from the elementary is working from home. When I questioned my niece and my nephew here about how class is going in there, there's no response from them, and they've been they don't know what's going on. I know there was, at the beginning of the school year, there was a long-term sub that was in there, and I believe that long-term sub is no longer in that position. And so I'm just wondering how this individual is making sure that our kids, our students, are getting the concept of Navajo language, Navajo culture, whichever one it is that she teaches. Because I do ask my nieces and nephews. I got 11 that we have here each day, and we go through them and we make sure that they're doing their work. And I just want to see how that one was going. Also, last but not least, I just want to commend the teachers and the school district for doing a tremendous job as being online teachers. You may have 20 plus years of teaching right now, but I think most of everybody is probably feeling like this is their first year teaching again. This is a new concept, a new way, and I'm really surprised on how much the teachers are so far advanced than teachers from the Valley. We have 2 students from Phoenix that are here with us, and I compare the teachers from the Valley to Pinon Unified, and it's day and night. And that's why I just want to commend the teachers for doing an excellent job and stepping up to the plate, to make sure that the instructions that are being put out there to the kids are being done the way I see that they're doing it. That's all I got.
So your AIA question is actually in my next presentation. I'll be talking about that. As far as the elementary assistant principal and the Dentist Studies teacher, that gets into health issues and HIPAA and personnel, so I can't discuss that in open session, but I can talk to you about that tomorrow. Can call you and we can talk about that offline, not in the open public meeting. And thank you for recognizing that. And I'm going to talk more about that in my next presentation too, but yes, our teachers really are stepping up and doing wonderful things online. We've made that jump a lot faster and a lot better than I would have dreamed that we would have done. So
Yeah. So any
Uh,
teachers listening,
Chris?
thank you.
Chris, to add on to Tommy's question, I did have a question at the last board meeting regarding our Navajo language and culture program, as well as the immersion. And you had informed me at that time that you were going to provide a report on that this month, and I didn't see that.
yeah, we didn't, I don't have that this month because really the focus of this month is what's going to happen next quarter, because that's going to inform everything else. But Valencia is working on that, and we'll put a report together on that. We have a new teacher that just joined us at the last board meeting. She's here on site now at the high school, so we do have full staff. As far as the immersion program, that has been on hold. Once we went into distance learning last quarter, the setup and everything for that, we just haven't completed it. But we do have all the Dentist Studies teachers are doing lessons. It varies a little bit by school, how those are being delivered and presented, how they're being scheduled. But I can send you the schedules for that, and then we can have that on our next board meeting. I apologize for not having it on this meeting. It just, other things came up for this meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on. Mr. Oscar, go ahead.
So let me just switch the screen here for those. Oops, where did my mouse go? There we go. So here's a school reopening plan update. And this ties in then to the board agenda item later on about what the board's direction or decision is for second quarter of this year. So this is kind of to brief you for that. So kind of give you updates of where we are in the current situation. And some of these slides are repeats from before. I've just been updating it as we go, just to keep the audience, the virtual audience and the board members in the loop. But just a reminder to the board, on June 1st, Superintendent Hoffman and ADE released the guidance to schools about what our options would be as far as reopening this school year. And if you're following the news at all, the Arizona news, it's been a pretty bumpy start in some places because some schools jumped in to open right away and then had issues. So we've and the schools around us and Pinon, having decided early that we were just going to be virtual distance for first quarter, I believe offered a lot of stability for our teachers and for the families and for our students to know what's going on, because in other districts, it kind of changes week to week, day to day, what's going to happen, and that's causing a lot of chaos in other places. So I commend the board on making that decision early on so everybody knew what was going to happen. This is, I'm going to talk a little bit more about AIA later, but this was an early AIA guidance document, but I left these two quotes in there because I think it's important for the board and for the community to continue to think about these, and that is COVID-19 is and will continue to be present in our communities indefinitely. There's still no cure, there is still no guaranteed treatment. So it's one of those things that we just, as best we can, have to figure out how to live with and do so in the safest way possible to prevent the spread and to prevent more cases. And then the second statement from the AI guidance document is, as long as there is active community spread, which means that new cases are still increasing, we must all be stewards of maintaining a healthy community by limiting the spread of disease. And although, and I'll show some numbers later, the state of Arizona and the Navajo Nation, the numbers have come down dramatically as far as new cases. There are still new cases, which means that it's still out there. So we can't let our guard down and say that, well, it's over and we can go back to normal, because we're not back to normal yet. So again, just to review the ADE scenarios that were available to us. Scenario 1 was all students start the school year attending school in person on campus. That did not happen anywhere in the state of Arizona. Scenario 2 was some students start the year attending in person while others are the distance learning, what they refer to more as a hybrid model. That includes things like having an A day and a B day, where some students are here one day and some students are here another day, and all of that kind of is that scenario 2. Scenario 3 was all students using the distance learning, and that's what the Pinion board decided to do. That's what we've been doing through fall break in October. And then scenario 4, which is the one I really want to avoid, is, if at all possible, is the students are intermittently here and then distance learning. And that really means that we open up and then there's some kind of outbreak or cases, and then we have to close, and then we come back, and then something happens, and then we have to close, and we kind of keep going back and forth and back and forth. That's scenario 4 is the one I really want to avoid at all costs. So just as an update on the scenarios. I've somehow, I'm not exactly sure how, I got invited into a group of doctors from Arizona and university professors, and there are some other superintendents in the group as well, and they are really this group is really focused on just the health and science of it, not the politics. And I don't want to get into that whole thing about politics, but a lot of the return to school has become very political and very polarizing. This group is very focused on just the data. What does the data show? What does the science show about how the virus spreads and everything? And in one of the webinars I was in for this group, they said the hybrid model, which is that scenario 2, is probably among the worst that we could be putting forward for schools to stop the virus from spreading. And that's actually from Harvard University. So this graphic, for those of you that are following along, is a screenshot of the presentation. It was all animated, but this really is designed to show community spread. This is how the virus spreads through a community. So in this particular case, and when this was live, all these arrows were flying in and everything was happening. This is just a screenshot, but basically it starts here with this one red dot down here in the corner, and that's a large red dot, so it's an adult. That red dot, or that individual, picks up the COVID-19 virus from somewhere. They could have gone to town shopping, they could be at a family gathering, they could be wherever, but they've picked it up. They come home, They've now passed it to the small red dot, which is their child, and their child comes to school, who now passes it to some other red dots in the class, which are other students in the class, and the teacher, that's the big red dot. Now these students take it back home and spread it to members of their family. This particular student went home, now has a brother or sister that took it to another classroom and spread it. Teachers spread to each other. It goes from classroom to classroom, house to house. And this is what was happening in Arizona and on Navajo Nation. It started with, you know, 1 or 2 people who came infected, and it just kept spreading to where on this next slide really shows, and it's kind of hard to see, but all of these are different houses. What they were talking about was this as spread to different schools or different classrooms, but I was looking at this as spread from, say, this is Pinon and this is Hard Rock and this is Forest Lake and this is Blue Gap, because our communities are very spread apart, and the students or the residents of those communities don't always come together and mix, except in a school setting. So you'd be sending kids to school and then possibly sending the kids home to an area that's that spreader of the virus. So again, this is just a graphic of how community spread works, and the fact that, you know, even though the cases are down considerably, they're still not gone. And the other thing that is a concern to me just personally is now that Arizona's reopening, you know, movie theaters are back open and a lot of the other restrictions are being lifted. We have fall break coming up, which is a week that all of our students and staff and their families are off, so they may be traveling or going and doing things. The potential for, you know, that one person to come back and then start that community spread is quite real. I mean, it's still there, even though we say things are better and everybody's kind of breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief. We just can't let our guard down based on that fact. You've probably heard about the dashboard that the Department of Health has put together, Arizona Department of Health. These are the metrics that we use to decide or to inform. I guess we're not bound to them, but as far as returning to school. So this is the state of Arizona as it stands right now. There are 3 different indicators, and I know here in the boardroom it's kind of hard to see. This is a decline in cases, or the percent, like the number per 100,000. So in the state of Arizona, we have 1 green check. It's been a pretty steady decline of cases, and that's a 2-week average. We still have the red X because it's still more than what it should be per 100,000. The second indicator is the percent positivity rate. And this is percent positivity below 7% for 2 consecutive weeks, and we've not hit that yet in the state of Arizona. And then this last indicator has to do with hospitalizations for COVID-like illnesses. So that could be COVID itself, or the flu, or the cold, or something else where people are actually going to the hospital for treatment. So the state of Arizona as a whole still has not met the metrics for return to school. This is just Navajo County. In Navajo County, we have the 2 green check marks here, and that has to do with the fact that Navajo County, you know, the population is not huge in Navajo County, so that makes this indicator a little bit easier to hit. We've still not gotten to that 7% benchmark for 2 consecutive weeks, so that's a red X. And then for the the hospitalization or medical treatment for COVID-like illness, that actually is Navajo, Apache, Coconino, and Yavapai counties put together to determine this, and that's been a green check mark all along. I was on a call earlier this week with the Navajo and Apache County superintendents, and the health officials were on there. They were indicating that when this data dashboard is updated tomorrow, Navajo County will probably have green checks all the way because we've now hit that 7% for 2 weeks in a row. But because there was a little bit of a spike in positive cases, when the data is refreshed again in another week, we're going to be back in the red X again because that we won't have had the 7%. Another important thing to know about this is the 7% is, if you meet the 7% indicator, that is returning, well, it's still a local decision, but that would be an indicator that you could return to school in that hybrid model where you had very small class sizes and you had some kids here, some kids not here. The recommendation is actually 5% to actually return to all the kids back on campus. One of the other things they recommend in one of the webinars is to also look at the business dashboard because they have the education dashboard and then they have another dashboard that's just for business reopening. And that one puts us in the moderate spread. So we're not in the green there yet. So that means there's still moderate community spread throughout Navajo County. And Navajo County is a very large area. I mean, north to south, it's a huge area. So, I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean Pinyon itself, but in the area, it's still moderate community spread. And then this is all the counties, just looking at the metrics on the school indicators. And you can see some counties, Apache County, last Thursday when this was updated, Apache County got the greens across the board to return to school, to return to in-person instruction. Greenlee and La Paz and Yavapai counties are the ones that so far have green checks across the board. Coconino has not, Navajo County has not, Maricopa County has not, so there are still reason to keep distance learning for a while longer. And this dashboard is only updated every Thursday. So it'll be updated again tomorrow. And there's a 2-week lag in the data. So this isn't like as of now. This is really as of 2 weeks ago is what this looks like. They don't update continuously. So just an update on our current actions. We've been purchasing, it's been a slow go, but the touchless hand sanitizer dispensers that would actually be mounted in all the classrooms, a lot of that is still on back order. We're getting them in bits and pieces. Some become available, we get them, we bring them, we install them, but we haven't been able to get our whole order yet. One of the issues we're having, and so are other schools around, is that all of the hand sanitizer dispensers, equipment, a lot of the cleaning supplies, PPE, the N95 masks, all of that kind of stuff is still being reserved for medical and first responders. So we're kind of on a waiting list and we get stuff as it becomes available. So we're working with every vendor we can come up with to get these things. And we've had, cases where a vendor will say, hey, we have this, if you can come pick it up, tomorrow, or if you can pay for it tomorrow, you can have it. Otherwise, we're going to sell it to somebody else. I mean, that's kind of how all of this is working right now because there's in short supply. We have been, and just a reminder that elementary and middle school, all the classrooms have sinks in them already. They have soap dispensers, paper towel dispensers, that's all being taken care of. The high school, there's only a couple classrooms that actually have sinks, so they would be the priority for the hand sanitizer dispensers right now. We have the touchless, the infrared thermometers on site, and we can order more. And then we're right now, we don't have students on campus, but all of our staff are being screened and they have their temperature taken whenever they enter a building. And we just received our automated temperature check devices in the last couple of weeks. And that's the picture on the left here is what that looks like. It's on this tall stand and it looks kind of like an iPad or tablet. It does facial recognition. So when you walk up to it, it will recognize you and kind of keep track of you. And it will tell you, it knows if you're not wearing a mask and it will tell you to wear a mask if you're not wearing one. And then it's hard to see in the picture, but right here on the side, is the sensor. So you put your wrist up to it and it will take your temperature and tell you if you're normal or not. And it keeps track of you. So we have 4 of those right now. We're looking at possibly getting more as needed, but we have one. This one is at the district office entrance right here. And then we have one for each school right now. And then I may have shown you this before. The picture on the right is our maintenance department is doing a great job of building these things themselves. So this is PVC pipe. There was a design on Facebook that kind of showed this is how this works. And we got the PVC pipe from Home Depot, and this is just a hand sanitizer pump bottle. And when you put your foot here and push down, it brings this top bar down and gives you a squirt of hand sanitizer, and you don't have to touch it. And they're building more of those. So our facilities department is doing pretty good. And that's why this big foot is right here, is to show you that, put your foot here and press and you'll get hand sanitizer. And then this is the picture again of the district office, because I just snapped a picture today of the entryway. So you come in and we've replaced this piece of glass with plexiglass, and you can't really see it in the picture, but there's a cutout down here where you can pass documents and things through. So people can come in the front door. We've put in a little buzzer for service in case Bertha's not there or doesn't see when somebody walks in. Reminders to wear the mask, and then business can be conducted without actually having people come into the district office. We're still trying to keep all the buildings as closed as possible to the public. And each of the schools has something similar to this. Just because of how the schools are arranged, it doesn't look exactly like this, but with the same idea, we've replaced a glass panel with plexiglass with the cutout, so business can be done through there without as much face-to-face interaction with people actually breathing on each other. We have purchased cleaning and sanitation supplies for every classroom in plastic tubs. We did train teachers on how to use them. During induction week, we did a Zoom live with our staff, and I made Myron come to my office, and I had the camera, and he demonstrated how to use everything and talked everybody through how to clean and sanitize and how to use those different products. We are still in the process of getting the steam carpet cleaners and those electrostatic fogger machines. Again, we're on back order and we're on lists and we're trying to get them. And the electrostatic foggers will help a lot, especially on the school buses, because you don't have to touch every surface. You can just kind of go through and wave that over it. And we're also investigating the UV light, because if you have those UV light wands, that kills coronavirus and, well, really any germs. So we're looking at those as well. And then we've closed the school campus really to any non-district activities. So in the past, the campus used to be the hub of everything. Everybody would have their meetings here and their trainings, and people would rent out space for birthday parties and all that kind of stuff. And we basically closed everything. We're not allowing really any outside groups to use facilities on campus right now at all. This is a pic on the left of the picture is the plastic tub that all the teachers and, well, every classroom and office got one. This is the one in my office. So the small bottle on the left, Germ War, that's actually hand sanitizer. So everybody has hand sanitizer in their classroom. That yellow square is a microfiber cloth. So they have that to clean. And then in the middle, that white tub are actually wipes, the sanitation wipes, so they can use those to wipe down computers and keyboards and the smaller areas. And then on the right is the bottle of the actual spray. So if they're cleaning their whole desktop or they're cleaning a larger area, they have spray that they can do that. And then what we're doing is as teachers or, well, whoever, administrators, whoever has the bin in their class, as they use those up, then they make a request to facilities and they give us the empty one, and then we refill it or replace it. So We do have supplies of all of those right now. With no students on campus, we're fine with those kind of supplies right now because we're not cleaning up after students. It's just the staff that we're working with. And then that picture on the right, it's kind of hard to tell what that is, but it is actually a plastic face shield. And we got a donation, I'm not sure who from, Myron or Jonathan, I don't know if you know who those came from, but we got a bunch of those plastic face shields for free. They were donated to us. And so all of our staff, the teachers, everybody got one, and we do still have some extra ones. So everybody has that the plastic face shield. So that was nice that they were donated. Somebody sent those to us. Oh, could be, yeah. I know a lot of different groups were sending things out this way for a while. So some other current actions on health and safety were, again, we're still working on water fountains, turning them off. That hasn't been a top priority because right now we don't have students on campus, but we are replacing them with the water bottle stations. And the other ones, when students do return to campus, would be turned off because that's a spread. You have to get your mouth and nose so close without a mask that you're leaving the respiratory droplets on them. So we want to be sure that we're not using actual water fountains. We've made or purchased some signs about masks, hand washing. We have done some floor markers for social distancing. Again, because we don't have students on campus right now, we haven't done a lot of that, except in areas where staff have been, and we've actually put arrows on the floor and marked out 6 feet and put like tape or markers on the floor to keep the distance. And then wearing masks for all students and staff. I issued a directive, well, months ago about that. And that's actually the policy advisory on the consent agenda is about mask usage that came from ASBA. So it would actually go in the board policy manual as a regulation about mask usage. And then the school has provided cloth face masks. The first round actually came from Pamela Mead and her group. She's got a sewing group that made just really cute masks for everybody and brought enough over for all the staff to get one. And then we ordered, and they just came, I believe, at the end of last week. We got 1,000 adult size and 1,000 child size masks that have the Pinion logo on them. And I know I'm sharing my screen, so you probably can't see it, but I'm wearing mine now, and Bessie's wearing hers now. And Mark and Tommy and Gary, we do have them for you as well. We'll get them to you, and we're starting to distribute them to all the staff on campus, and then we have them for students as well in the large adult size, and then the really, really tiny little kid size for the elementary students. Instructional program. I apologize, I'm going through this pretty quickly, but I'm also trying to watch what's happening with the board members on the Zoom meeting. So if you have questions, let me know. Some other current actions on the instructional program. All 14 Wi-Fi buses are up and going. So congratulations to Transportation Department and to the IT Department. Farah and Jamie, Ramey, they've been putting those together. And to Jonathan for helping to coordinate, and to Auto Safety House, they're the ones that installed them down in Holbrook. The 14 actually hotspots, the buses have a place for 2 different SIM cards to put in. So NTUA Choice Wireless put in a SIM card for their network, and they also put in a SIM card for the AT&T network. So wherever our buses are parked, whichever cell tower they can bounce off of and whichever has the best signal, then our buses will connect and they broadcast that service out. The bus range so far they figure is about 200 feet. So when the bus is parked, all 200 feet all around it is kind of where you can get the signal. So it's not, something that broadcasts for miles. You still have to be somewhat close to the bus, but they are getting use. People are driving up and using them. I have a picture here on the next slide. We've also created a guest Wi-Fi account here on campus. So if people drive in and park in the parking lot, they can actually just connect to OTSA guest. They don't need a password, and they can connect to internet. and do their schoolwork. They can connect their phone or tablet, their laptop, or if they have a school-issued device, it'll connect right up as well. Also, just so the board is aware that the 14 buses and the guest Wi-Fi are also SEPA compliant, which means they have internet filtering, so people can't get to the bad stuff. I mean, it's still filtered, so they can't like search or end up in places that they shouldn't be online when they do the buses or the campus Wi-Fi. We have received 850 Chromebook computers. The new ones are here. They're all logged in, and we've been checking them out to students. And just a reminder, we sold 601, I believe, of the old ones out to the community in that gigantic sale that we had that went on about a month ago. And we have 300 more. We decided to order 300 more Chromebooks, but they're back ordered because basically every school in the country is trying to get Chromebooks right now. So there'll be a delay on those, but we really do have enough Chromebooks for all the kids to sign one out. Plus, we still have iPads at the elementary as well. So we have enough devices that we can check them out to any student that may need them. And then we're also looking, I had asked Farah in the IT department to work again through NTUA choice about purchasing some of the mobile little Wi-Fi hotspots, so they call them MiFi. For those, maybe some of our special education students or at-risk students that don't have internet at home and really can't drive up to where the buses are and come, and that we could issue them one of those little MiFi as well. The only catch to those little MiFi hotspots is that they work like a cell phone. So if you live in a space where there's no cell phone access, the MiFis aren't going to work either. So that's something that families are going to have to kind of think about is, where their house is located, can they actually get the 4G or LTE signal and be able to do that? And then
This thing came out, there's a couple of places that we should ask the President Manners that they're talking about the same thing, buying for the hotspot. They can say hotspot, but
oh yeah, they're
use their money in case. They need to get involved with the education of students. They call it hardship. I don't want them to give away money. I want them to help the kids. Yeah.
so this, oh, I'm sorry, I jumped a slide here. Oh,
That's
that's
right. That one of the meetings that apparently other schools are not providing these Wi-Fi, or like Kayaka has a lot of students, some students from up here, actually, you don't provide anything, so they're all trying to huddle and around our bus, and I guess the bus driver told them that this is for Pinion.
correct. We're only,
They were all upset, we just said, hey, we're paying for it.
well, correct. The issue with these, and the reason that they're not open, the bus Wi-Fi's do have a password on them that we would change, and we're not providing service to anyone that's not a student because we pay for the data on these, and it is a metered connection, and there's only so many. I said there's a range of like 200 feet, but they still only connect so many devices. So if you've got, 50 people all trying to drive up and connect, not all 50 are going to be able to connect. So we're prioritizing our students, and we're not letting others from other schools, or just, it's not free public Wi-Fi. It's really Wi-Fi for our.
Head Start was trying to get service to Yanta, PRA schools. So we were saying we should send out words to all those schools to, apply these things and set up for the students. Okay.
Yeah, I know. Well, this is something that I've thought of, we had talked about here in the district before, a lot of the other districts really thought of it, I guess, because we got on the list and we got ours early. A lot of the other schools are still on waiting lists to get them because kind of like the Chromebooks, all of a sudden these are in real high demand and now they're back ordered forever. So there's a lot of places that they may be trying to get them, but they don't have them yet. So, but yes, we're only providing the bus Wi-Fi to our students. So it's not free public Wi-Fi just to anybody. And I would say to those students or families, if Wi-Fi is an issue, then come enroll in Pinion and you can join and we can let you on our Wi-Fi. But so this is one of the, but this picture was actually taken today. It's one of our buses that's Wi-Fi enabled. It's parked. Somebody actually drove up and set up their own little classroom there by the bus, and they're working. And it's hard to see in the picture, but there is actually, this is a student way out there, and she was trying to test the range of how far away she could get, and that's how far away from the bus she is. So the buses do have quite a range, but they set up a little shade area and drove up, and they were doing their classes on the Wi-Fi buses. So we have 14 of those that are out. Once we have final locations, because right now we're still kind of moving them around to find the best signals, we're actually going to put out a map so everybody knows the times and locations and an actual map of where they are. But right now the locations are still a little bit adjusting just to see where we can get the best service. Because as I'm sure you all know, there are a lot of dead spots out there as far as cell service and data service. And these buses work just like a cell phone. So if there's no service, there's no internet. So, yeah. They set up a little shade tent thing. Yeah, it's a canopy. Yeah. Well, I looked at it on the picture and it looks like, hey, is that San Francisco Peaks? But that's actually blue. That they set up a little canopy shade they created their own little classroom out there. So it's good to know that people are using them, the Wi-Fi buses that we're putting out there. So we've done, I already talked a little bit about this, we've done huge amounts of training. During induction week, we also purchased training accounts through, I believe it's Shake It Up Learning, so that all of our teachers can actually become Google certified teachers. They log in and they go through it kind of at their own pace, but it goes from really basic Google and online instruction to some really fancy stuff if you go through the whole program. So all of our teachers and I believe administrators have accounts. I just started mine a week ago, going through those classes to become a Google certified teacher. We've expanded our current online programs. So we've had E2020, the Edgenuity forever, but it was really just for credit recovery at the high school. We've now expanded that, so it's actually grades 6 through 12, all the content areas. There's lots of video content and lessons in there, so teachers can assign it. And we're trying to get it set up where students can even just go in and enter some of those for tutoring and tutorials if they have internet access. Obviously, the Google Classroom and Zoom, we're doing, the schools have set times, elementaries in the morning, middle schools midday, high schools in the afternoon, where the teachers actually have live sessions. So the students that have internet access, they get on their computer and they're in a class with their teacher doing live lessons. We just received, I believe it was Monday, 1,000 USB drives, these little USB thumb drive, flash drives. The Chromebooks that we sold to the community and our new Chromebooks have USB ports. And any Mac or PC Windows machine has USB ports. So what we've found out was on the Chromebooks, if teachers load video content on here, if they load lessons, they can plug it into their Chromebook and watch it. I mean, they can watch their teacher teach it, even without the internet. It's not interactive. I mean, you can't like ask questions, but I mean, you could actually watch the teacher demonstrate the math problem or, you know, go through the reading lesson and watch. So we just got those. They're getting handed out to the schools. So teachers will be loading up content on here that we can send home with the packets for those students without internet. So the students who don't have good internet and can't connect online, we've been sending packets to them. Well, it's just kind of the packet, and the teachers are calling and working with the parents and the students on the phone. But this would just be another opportunity with the USB drives that they can load content and send that home so the students can actually watch some of the lessons live. Some other great news, and I sent this out to the board members, I believe, through email, but our application for an Arizona online instruction school was approved. The deadline for that was July 1, and I put an application together and submitted it like right at the deadline and got it in. For Pinyon Eagles Online Academy, a lot of the AOI online schools in Arizona are high school only or secondary, but when I wrote this, knowing the COVID issues, I actually wrote it for K-12. And they, in the first round, they said they had some questions on our application. So they set up a live demonstration and session with me and several other people, a couple teachers, some admins, IT here in the district. And they asked us questions and we demonstrated the programs and did everything in a kind of a Zoom setting. And we got full approval. Most schools were getting provisional approval, which means they can do it for 1 year and then they have to reapply. We actually got full approval, so we are good forever. I mean, we now have a 4th school in the Pinyon Unified School District, and it's an online school. So we're doing the final setup. I know Jonathan needs a couple things from me to set to ADE because we go through school finance and set it up as a school. It'll have its own entity number and CTDS and everything. And once that's set up, then we can actually any of our current students who want to go totally online could transfer into that school, or we could take new enrollments for new students as well into that school. And because it's an online school, to be honest, students anywhere in the state of Arizona could register and be part of that school. They don't have to be local, because as long as they're a resident of the state of Arizona, they can go to any online school. So we could get kids from, you know, if we had families or some of our students maybe that had gone to Phoenix or someplace and they wanted to go to school here, they could enroll and go back to school with us here in the district. So once this is set up, and we're kind of shooting for, or my goal is to have it ready to accept enrollments and get started when we come back from fall break, because trying to transfer students around in the middle of the quarter is just a nightmare. But once the grades are set and the first quarter is over, then we could make some of those transfers and move forward and accept new enrollments for second quarter. So that I'm probably most excited about this. Having an online school is really a point of pride because they're not common. I mean, there aren't a lot of online schools in the state of Arizona. Not every district has one. So. And then just for our regular classrooms, Myron and I in the facilities department, after we walked through, picked a few model classrooms, started removing extra furniture because, you know, if you've been in classrooms, there's a lot of extra cabinets and, you know, tables, and some teachers have, you know, couches and all kinds of stuff in their classroom. And we started taking all of that stuff out just to make room for desks. Yeah, you accumulate all kinds of stuff. Especially at the elementary, because they do like reading corners and all kinds of stuff, which takes up, and normally it's not a big deal. It's cute, you know, kids love it, but when you're trying to get as much distance between kids as possible, that all has to come out. So that's, so one of the things that we're doing, I saw a social media on Facebook post about a teacher, because their district wasn't providing a lot of this stuff. They went to Home Depot and got PVC pipe. That's what the purple or blue. And then you can't, I mean, it's clear, so you can't really see it, but this is shower curtain, clear shower curtain. And they made their own dividers to put between the desks. So I was with Myron and we went to Flagstaff to Home Depot, and I was like, hey, can we build these? So we got a bunch of the PVC pipe. We went to, I went into Walmart and bought out all their clear plastic shower curtains, and maintenance has been building these so we can put them in classrooms in different spaces to put in those dividers between desks. Whoops. Because again, a lot of, I mean, if you ordered them, the actual plexiglass, big heavy ones, one, they're really expensive, and two, they're also back ordered because they're in high demand right now. So we're putting the creativity of our custodial and maintenance department to test here and having them create a lot of these things and build them in-house, and they're doing a great job. I believe I showed you these pictures last time. This is an elementary classroom. It's set up for 20 student desks, but with 20 desks in an elementary classroom, they could only be 4 feet apart. So with the fact that a lot of our students probably will go online, that would decrease the number of physical students in the classroom, and we'd be able to spread that out. But you can see in this, for those of you following along, you can see in this picture why it's so important that all the tables and all that other stuff come out, because you need the space to space out the desks. This is a middle school classroom. The middle school classrooms are a little bit bigger in square footage, I believe, than the other schools, because we actually got 19 desks in the classroom, and those are 6 feet apart. So most of the middle school classrooms are, I think, a little bit bigger than at the other schools. And then at the high school, we got 17 desks and only 4 feet apart again. So, and the guideline is 6 feet, but the CDC and Arizona Department of Ed all say that that's the target, but if you can't do 6 feet, you can't do 6 feet, you just do the best you can. And that's why masks are so important, but we are trying our best to figure out how to maintain at least the 6 feet of distance in all of those areas. Another current action on food service, when we return to classroom instruction again, we would be doing it breakfast and lunch in the classroom. That's the recommendation from CDC and from ADE. Not to have cafeterias, not to have kids sitting at tables, not to have kids waiting in line to get food, but to have things prepackaged, disposable. And we've already started buying the equipment for that, the ice chest coolers and the different, the other things that we would need to do breakfast and lunch in the classroom at all schools. We are currently, and this just changed this week, which caused a little bit of confusion. So my apologies to anybody out there watching. That it was a very sudden change, but the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, finally gave permission for a waiver so we can go back to the summer feeding program instead of the National School Lunch Program, which is what we were doing before. So now we're taking it back to what we were doing in April, May, and June. We can take meals out on the bus, we can hand it out to any student or any child age 18 or younger, and they do not have to be enrolled at Pinion to do that. So if they're, students are in Head Start or BIE schools or anything, on that one, they can come up and get meals just like anybody else. We don't have to have lunch numbers anymore. We don't have to have, it doesn't have to be a Pinion student. We posted the schedule out on our website and through social media, but it's twice a week. We're doing it on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but it's like on Tuesday, you get a couple days worth of food like we were doing at the summer. So, and we're actually sending it out on the buses, running the bus routes again, like we did in April, May, June. So people don't have to come drive here or drive up to one of the Wi-Fi buses. We're actually running the buses along the routes. And they can come out to the bus and they can get the food. And we posted a schedule for that. And then we also, the St. Mary's Food Bank, our partnership with them started again, and we've gotten the first deliveries. So we'll also be starting the St. Mary's Food Bank distributions through the bus, through this whole thing. Yes, Ramona?
You're saying that the buses drive through for the food service? Is there a designated area? Is there a place where they stop? Or they just drive through?
Well, both. I mean, they run an actual bus route, but we do have stops on the route and the approximate times. This was the first couple days that we've done it, so we'll update those and put it out again, an updated list for that. So we do still have the drive up here on campus, so anybody local can drive up. It's not in front of the elementary anymore, it's behind the high school because we switched to the high school cafeteria. They can, so if they're local, they can still drive through and pick up, but we're also sending the buses out along bus routes so people can just come up to the, we're asking that one person from a family come to the bus, wear a mask, and they can pick up, basically they just need to say, I have, 4 kids under the age of 18, and they would get 4 students worth of meals handed out to them. And again, for those listening in the audience, in virtual land, it does not have to be a Pinion student to get those meals. So that just changed this week. So we started up with the Meals on Wheels again to make it a little bit easier for people, because that gets to be a lot driving into campus every day, or coming to a specific area 5 days a week to do that.
So do we get refunded part of the finance part?
Yeah, the question, if you couldn't hear, board member Allen asked about the financing. Because we're under the summer feeding program, we just count meals and we get reimbursed for those meals. So we're not tied like we were under the school lunch program, where we're actually having to enter a student ID number. Now we just count and we keep track of. And just to note, that waiver from USDA is only in place until December 31st. So after December 31st, when we start second semester, unless they do something in Washington, D.C., we would have to switch back again to the National School Lunch Program. But at least for now, we're trying to feed as many kids in the community as we possibly can. So even if they're not our students.
Okay, even, what did you say, all age?
18, so the
18,000?
down to birth, basically. If they can eat solid food, they can be counted and they can come in and they can get that food as well. So, which would be good for those who would normally have their children in daycare or Head Start or someplace because those aren't open right now and operating. I don't know if they're providing any kind of meal service or meal help, but this would be a way for them to get meals for their kids too. If, I know a lot of our families are kind of on hard times right now with all the shutdowns and everything going on. So this would be an opportunity to get meals for kids. And then like I said, we're also starting the St. Mary's Food Bank distributions as part of this as well. Oops, where am I?
Okay. Anyone else? Is there any questions on the form? Again?
So I think I only have a few slides left, and then we can go to questions or move on the agenda, because this comes up again later as the agenda item when you vote on what you want to do about school for second quarter. Transportation right now, transportation is very busy. They're maintaining the bus Wi-Fi and they're doing the meal distribution. We are looking at student bus routes as far as having, when we return to campus and transporting students, but that's really hard to do right now because we don't know what students would actually be coming back to campus as far as designing those routes and how many students on a bus. So that part of it we haven't really gotten to yet because we just don't know who would be riding the bus back to school. What happened here? Athletics. Tommy, this was your question about AIA. So there was meetings this week, I believe. NAIC, which is the middle school level, and AIA, I don't know that they've actually voted on them yet, but their current proposals, and we've seen a draft schedule, is that they would have winter sports, which would be basketball, starting in January. So it would not start in November, December like it normally does. It would start in January. It would be a much shortened season. And then they're going to do the fall season after the winter season. So once the basketball is over, they're going to put in the fall season, which would be football and volleyball and cross country. Again, a very shortened season. And then they'll go to the spring, which would be baseball, softball, track. Again, a very shortened season. So they're running all 3 seasons in one semester. There is a little overlap in the 3 seasons, at least at the middle school level. There's a little bit of overlap, but the overlap is conditioning week. So if it ended up being a student that's a multi-season athlete, they would just basically go right from one to the other. And then wrestling, which is normally a winter sport, they're trying to push that off later. So that may actually become a spring sport, just because that is really the one sport that is 100% contact. I mean, you can't, other sports, there's some physical contact, but it's not constant. But in wrestling, there, I mean, you can't wrestle from a distance. I mean, if you're going to wrestle somebody, you actually are like wrestling and touching that person. So wrestling is kind of, they're figuring out what to do with wrestling. But in answer to your question, Tommy, that's what I know so far is that's what they're proposing. I don't know that they've had their final votes from AIA and NAIC yet on that proposal, but that's the latest that I've seen, is to have all 3 seasons, but to compress them and actually squeeze the fall season in between winter and spring, which, depending on how our spring goes, could be interesting for cross country and football, because we could be having blizzards still at that time, because that would fall sort of in that time frame where we can get a lot of snow. So we'll see how that goes. I don't know, Tommy, did you have any other specific questions on that one? I know you asked before.
No, I just heard from other schools of what they were still projecting on doing. But the compressed season, I think I kind of logged in kind of late on those ones, and I just want to see how. But I did hear that they were going to compress the season. But I have questions on the some of the things that the pictures that you showed. What is that? The automatic temperature thingy?
Yes.
I wanted to know how long does it take for one individual? How long does it take to process one individual with that?
It's pretty instant. You step up to it and you put your, it recognizes your face. It knows you're standing there. It recognizes that, I mean, it looks for your face, and then you just put your wrist up to that little sensor, and it tells you, I mean, you can move people through pretty quickly.
Okay. Yeah, because I was listening into some of the other things that on some of those automated ones like that, they're saying that it takes a little bit of time, and one of the schools did say that they don't have a lot of time to be processing temperature checks, things like that. So I just want to make sure that if we do go back into in-person school, what's the alternative if that gets hung up, or if it has a glitch, or if
We
it's
still
not.
have the other touchless thermometers. So somebody, I mean, if that's not working, we'd still have somebody there monitoring. So if it doesn't work for some reason, then they could
Yeah.
use the other touchless forehead thermometer and get a temperature.
Okay. Then the other thing I want to ask was, I know we've been talking about the water bottle fountains, I think since May or June. How much longer is that going to take to install? Or those on back order too?
I know we have some of them, but we're still ordering more and getting them in. Some of them are already installed, but
Okay.
I can get you an update on that. I'll talk to Myron and we'll see, and I'll get you an update on that one.
Okay. All right.
But some are already installed and in use here on campus, so.
Yeah. Also
So,
on that hand sanitizer dispenser that was at the district, I've tried it and I was pretty surprised on how it works. So I thought that was a good idea, since the dispensers that were ordered are all on back order.
Yeah, it works really great. Sometimes the old fashioned manual stuff is better than the fancy electronic stuff, so. Okay, so, continuing on here, we also have, I'll go through this is just about students and staff staying home when they're sick, the governor's executive order, flexibility on procurement. So on-site services, this is something else that's coming up later that I'm asking the board for some direction on. The governor's executive order said that no school could start or have students on campus before August 17th, but on August 17th, even if we were doing online, that we needed to open up an area for on-site services for students to come in. But there is a waiver process for that. And because the Navajo Nation still had a stay-at-home shelter-in-place order, I used that order and filed for a waiver from the on-site services. Now, what is happening here? It's going the wrong way.
Yeah, so let me just start from the side.
So the on-site services, basically starting August 17th, we were supposed to have opened areas on campus, and we identified those areas and we'd started setting them up. So they're basically ready, those areas. But then I submitted the waiver, ADE approved the waiver based on the shelter-in-place order that Navajo Nation had. That's the only reason it got approved, was the shelter-in-place order. Window Rock, my understanding is Window Rock School District did not apply for a waiver. All of the other Navajo Nation schools did apply for a waiver, and we got the waiver. Border towns were not granted the waiver. Winslow applied and it was denied. So it was really only those school districts that are totally on Navajo Nation using the stay-at-home order. We got the waiver. The waiver is only good for 4 weeks, so it expires on September 21st. So starting Monday, September 21st, we would need to provide on-site services again unless the board, which is in this later item, would basically direct me to apply for another waiver. Now, it is an application for a waiver. ADE can say no. The hangup is going to be that the shelter-in-place order is no longer in effect on Navajo Nation. They've switched from shelter-in-place to a different phase. I'm not sure if ADE will recognize that or not. It's worth a try. But what on-site services are is looking at our special education ESS population, so IEP services, Child Find, our ELL students that don't have internet access, or really at-risk students who need tutoring services would be the targeted populations for on-site services. We did do before we got the waiver, the schools did call parents and students to find out who would be coming in. I believe the high school only had 12, I think, students who were potentially going to come for on-site services. Middle school had more. They were in the 20s, I think, 26. I think that's about what elementary had as well. So out of our 1,010 students, those were the only ones who really said that they would come for on-site services. There is an agreement that would need to be signed. We've got that from the trust and through Patrice's office that really is a a waiver for the parents, a COVID waiver or acknowledgement. The parents can refuse to sign the waiver, but we would have them, we would present the waiver and the acknowledgement to them. And our locations, so at for high school students, it was going to be, I call it the band room. It's the old band room. It's the big room across the hall from the gym. It's been different things over the years, but that's a big room, high ceilings, easy to accommodate. The middle school students would actually be in the high school gym because the middle school is having the roof redone and depending on the board action later, having the restrooms redone. So we really can't have students in that building right now. And then the elementary school is in the elementary gym. So the support model, we have to offer support services the same number of days that we would normally be in service, so that's 5 days a week, following our normal school calendar. This isn't a drop-off, so basically the parents would have to make arrangements ahead of time to bring their children, and that's just to maintain numbers and so we know what to plan for. Students, if they have their own Chromebook or laptop already, they would bring it. Otherwise, we would have some here that we could provide. We're not providing transportation services for this. It's not required. So this, if any students who are going to be attending this, it would be at their transport to get here. And then this is not classroom instruction. This is not students in classrooms. This is not teachers working with students. This is, I guess the best way to describe it is almost like study hall, where students come in, we provide them a place to work, they would get on their computer and do their online lessons or packets. Obviously, we would have some certified or classified staff in the room because we can't leave kids in there by themselves, but it won't be like one-on-one classroom instruction. And then of course we would provide meals because this would be over the meal time, so we'd have breakfast and lunch. The schedule times are specific. Limitations, again, to stress, this is not traditional teacher-led in-person classroom instruction. I think it's important for parents to understand that so they know that if they're sending their kids, that basically the kids are going to be in study hall. And masks are required for students all day except when they're eating. And I mean, it is a very contained, controlled environment. And then, so this is the elementary gym setup with the distancing between the desks. All the lights aren't on, that's why it's kind of dark in this picture. But that's basically what it looks like. And then this is the high school gym setup for the middle school. Same idea, just a lot of desks set up in rows with 6 feet in all directions where students would work on their classwork. So students will basically be doing the same work they would be doing at home. It's just for whatever reason, they need to come here for some additional support or services or possibly internet access. And as I mentioned, the waiver, we were supposed to start this on August 17th. The waiver was approved. It goes to Friday the 18th. So starting on Monday the 21st, we have to be prepared to provide on-site services, which would be the last 2 weeks of first quarter. And then we have our fall break, which is October 5th to 9th. So, so just kind of in closing, and we can do more questions here or we can save them for the agenda item later. My recommendation to the board is action to approve all students distance learning, which is scenario 3, until at least Friday, October 30th. But, and that's 3 weeks into the second quarter. And the reason I did that was because I know for a fact that a lot of our staff and probably students and families over fall break are going to be traveling around. So I wanted that 3-week buffer before we even thought about having students back on campus, just in case anybody, you know, came in contact with something over fall break. I was on a call yesterday, a Zoom meeting yesterday. Navajo Nation, Doty, Department of Education, has a weekly call now with all superintendents and basically all schools on Navajo Nation from all 3 states, BIE, public, charter, everybody's on the call. And what they were saying is the Navajo Board of Education is having a meeting tomorrow, and they plan to pass a resolution requesting all schools to stay distance or virtual only through first semester, so up until Christmas break. As an Arizona public school, you know, I mean, there's always that debate, well, it's still local control. As an Arizona public school board, it's still your decision whether you would follow that or not, but my understanding is that's what's gonna come out tomorrow from Doty, is a resolution that all schools, BIE, charter, public, grant schools, stay virtual, online, distance only until the end of the semester. And then the second part was a direction basically to me on what you want to do about an application for a second waiver. Do we want to let the waiver expire and start providing on-site services on the 21st? Or do you want me to try to apply again and see if it gets approved or not? If it does get approved, it would be another 4 weeks because they only do waivers in 4-week blocks. So the first one was for 4 weeks. If we got approved for another waiver, it would be for another 4 weeks. So I guess those are my 2 recommendations, is that we continue scenario 3, distance learning, online distance learning for all students, probably until the end of second quarter, which would be the end of first semester, and then some direction from the board on the on-site service waiver. So I know that was a long presentation. I'm sorry, public board, but I just wanted to cover as much as I possibly could with all of you so you could kind of be up to date.
Chris?
Yes?
Chris?
Yes?
Sorry to interrupt you. This is Mark. I have a question. How much, or do we have to comply with what the state is recommending or requiring, since we are a state public school versus a tribal grant school? Tribal grant school, the board has total control of everything. They can decide on, how they want to proceed. But in our terms, since we are a state-funded school, how much do we have to comply with what the state is recommending?
Well, as an Arizona public school, we always have to comply with the Arizona Department of Education and the Arizona State Board of Education. But those scenarios that I outlined, those 4 that ADE put out, those scenarios are available to us through this entire school year. So we have the option to do that scenario 3 really all the way to May if the board I'm recommending doing it in smaller chunks, but that option is available to us all the way through. And the metrics, those graphs that I was showing with the red X and the green check, that is just guidance. That is not binding. So that's just a data point that the boards can use to make a decision. And schools down south didn't follow it. They've still got red check marks and they've got students back in the classroom. So that's really just sort of out there for us to use. That's a good question, but under local control and under the guidance that AD has put out, it really is the Pinon School Board's decision to continue the distance learning. Does that answer?
Okay. I would recommend, and I highly do recommend to my fellow colleagues on the board, that we having students on campus through the end of December, and then come January, depending on how the virus is, then we can look at possibly bringing the kids back, maybe like partial day, or have an A group, B group, and C group, something like that. But anyhow, from now till the end of December, I would highly encourage the board to support me in having no students on campus until the end of Christmas break. I think, Chris, you've provided enough information. I think we've drained and dissected this whole thing. I think we need to move forward with the agenda.
So this is just a report. The actual vote on that is after the consent agenda. So when we get to that one, the discussion's really already happened. So it would just be a motion and a second at that point. So, and thank you, Mark, for your support on that one. But this is a no action. This is just the report. So when we hit that agenda item under new business number 1, that's when you would actually make that motion and vote on that piece. So,
Okay.
Chris,
yes.
Chris, just got I think a couple of questions. The health professionals, when and how severe are they projecting the second wave? What is it? When is it projected for our area?
They haven't really given a lot of specifics. What the calls that I've been on, what they're most worried about is the start of flu season, because flu season, the symptoms are the same as COVID. So now you're going to have a whole bunch of people sick and you're not going to
Exactly.
know, is it COVID or is it the flu or is it a cold? We're also in just allergy season, and people are sneezing and coughing, and every time somebody sneezes or coughs, everybody kind of gives them a dirty look, like, are you COVID positive or what's going on? And
Yeah.
one thing I hadn't mentioned.
So
Well, go ahead.
so just like Mark, I do want to keep the kids safe and the staff safe, at least up to the first semester. Also, that I've been on the calls with Dodie and President Nez, and I think President Nez really wants to keep his people safe, and he too would like to keep the students learning from in the virtual world for now, because I truly believe on what he says was that we're a sovereign nation and that we need to exercise our sovereign rights, and that um, Navajo Nation just doesn't have the capacity to house anybody that gets sick with COVID. Um, we don't have all the equipment to properly um, care for an individual that comes down with COVID. Then the other thing is, just want to make sure that, we just keep everybody safe. Um, I know if you adhere to all the recommendations from the health professionals, stay home, wear a mask, social distancing, those do work. They do work. Um, and just like you said, influenza is coming up in the next couple of months here. Um, we're not going to be able to distinguish who has influenza and who has COVID. So um, that's all I got to say on that.
And I know we can move on, but just a quick note, I didn't put it in my board report, I don't think, but just a quick note on influenza. Pinion Clinic and IHS are going to be doing a flu clinic here with our staff, a closed pod flu clinic where they will vaccinate, they will do the flu vaccine for every single staff member here on campus. And they're actually doing it in kind of a unique way where they are actually going to travel classroom to classroom or office to office, so they don't have people all lined up and bunched up in one room. And then once that's done, then the next way they're going to do it is a drive-up flu clinic for students. And we talked about using like the bus loop and having them, so it would be totally drive up, nobody would get out of their vehicle, they'd just drive up and they'd get the shot through the window, basically. And then the third wave would be just the whole community flu shot clinic that we also said could be here on campus, kind of the same thing, where it would just be drive-through, they'd reach through the window and just give you your flu shot. So I have to say IHS and Pinion Clinic have been really good about that, and they're really trying to push the flu. They really want everybody to get flu shots this year, just to help. And I know in some, before we move on, just I know where my family's from in South Dakota, they're already in their second wave. They've had the highest numbers that they've had yet just in the last weeks. So the second wave has already kind of started in some parts of the country. So you know, things are still good here on Navajo Nation in the state of Arizona. Numbers are coming down and everything's good, but other parts of the country have already started in on their second wave. So
Thanks, Chris.
yes, consent agenda reminder is just, let me get back to the agenda here. Here we go. The consent agenda reminder is there's no discussion. It's just one vote. But if there is anything that you do want to discuss, you can motion to have that taken off the consent agenda and it would just go under new business. So again, it's the approval of vouchers, the approval of the board minutes, acceptance of the policy service advisory from ASBA. That's the one on mask usage. Qualified evaluators, the early entrance of a kindergarten student, and then hiring club sponsors. And I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, for anybody that wasn't on at the beginning of the meeting, even though we're virtual, we are still running all of our clubs and organizations, Student Council, National Honor Society. We're doing all of that virtually. Chess clubs. We're trying to keep the kids as engaged as possible. That's why we're hiring the club sponsors at this time, and they started at the beginning of the year. So that's the consent agenda. If there's any motion or anything to approve the consent agenda.
Board Member McKay would like to go ahead and approve the consent agenda as presented.
And I'll second on that.
Gary seconded. Or,
We don't know what they have. The temperature, or if they're sick, I think they need to just go home. I think
Yeah.
that's what we need to put in that policy.
yeah, that's the recommend. Oh, I'm sorry. I keep switching
Two
them.
places that mentions that.
I keep switching the microphone back and forth. We have submitted all of our plans and everything to IHS, their mitigation. They've reviewed it. Navajo County's reviewed it. IHS had the same recommendation that basically if students are sick in any kind of screening, it doesn't matter whether their temperature is high or low, that they be sent home and referred. Now, whether the parents take them or not is a different thing, but I mean, that they be referred for medical services. So that would be addressed in there. Yeah. So I don't know if you could hear that.
Can you hear?
Tommy and Gary, there was a motion and a second, and Bessie and Ramona voted yes. Are you?
Okay, I vote yes. And just
I
for
vote
the
yes
just for
also.
the record, the first vote for the adoption of the agenda, I just want to let you guys know I voted yes as well. I think that's when I started having problems with my.
Okay.
We can correct that. And just, it looks like we lost Mark. I don't see him on the meeting anymore, so he may try to call back in, but just right now we have the 4 board members, the 2 here in the room, and we have Tommy and Gary online, so.
The 4 in favor, 0 opposed, none abstaining, motion is carried. Okay, let's move to the
So-
next item.
Next, Madam President, members of the board, next item is new business number 1, discussion and possible action to approve scenario 3, all students distance learning on the ADE roadmap for reopening schools for second quarter. And here I had it until at least October 30th or a later date determined by the board. So what I would ask the board to do here is to make a motion, and if there's any additional discussion after my report, to make a motion to approve scenario 3 until whatever date the board decides, and the discussion in the previous item was to go all the way until the end of second quarter, which is also the end of first semester, which is December 18th, I believe. And then, well, it would be the waiver too. So does the board want me to apply for a waiver again? There's no guarantee that the waiver would be accepted, but does the board want me to try?
Yes, I'd like to motion to approve to consider option 3 up to the end of first semester, and to have Chris apply with ADE on the waiver. Also to see if we can get a letter of support from Navigation President and Vice President's office, along with the Health Command Center.
A second amendment.
Ramona seconds the motion. I think instead of saying Chris, put superintendent.
Yeah,
Chris is a local discussion, but superintendent is more official.
Yeah.
To apply for the waiver.
okay, yeah.
Okay.
And just for the note, Mark, you rejoined us. So just to bring you up to speed, the motion from Tommy, we're on new business number 1, is to go with basically what you said, option 3 until the end of first semester. So that would go all the way up through the winter Christmas break. And then also to direct me to apply for the waiver for on-site services, which would be, I mean, it would be up to ADE to approve or not, but the direction is to do that and for me to attempt the waiver. So that's where we are right now. There was a motion, and Ramona seconded that motion. So I don't know if there's any further discussion there or.
Okay, if there's no discussion, I know the parents really support us about it all the time. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Board Member Little, I vote yes.
And all 5 of you voted?
Yes, all 5 voted yes.
Okay. Okay, 5 in favor, 0 opposed, motion is carried. Thank you. I think at the same time, we need to consider the spring semester also, because in one of these documents that President Nez issued out, it states that and shall prepare for the second waiver of the virus. However, and keep wearing your mask and wearing mask and towels. Everything is over. That's when we take off our mask. That's what he says in one of the sentences. And that could be used against on this also. Okay, yeah. So moving on to 6.2, discussion and possible action to approve an optional $20 insurance coverage for devices issued to students of Pinyon Unified School District 4. These are electronic devices.
It's for the Chromebooks. So this is an insurance policy that would cover, it really covers about everything: damage, theft, breakage, loss. I would ask the board, John's on the call. John, if you could unmute and kind of explain this when you know more about what this particular company offers. Yeah, that's. John, go ahead and.
Okay, hello, ladies and gentlemen of the board. This is Jonathan, business manager. So I'm kind of explain what this is. When we were looking into insurance coverage for our brand new Chromebooks, the 850 that we purchased, we noticed a lot of school districts have offered insurance for the Chromebooks to their students so that they don't have to be liable for the entire amount if they did break in the device or lost it. So that's what that quote sheet is. I looked into 3 companies that offer insurance coverage for Chromebooks. And by state statute, we cannot impose a fee for insurance coverage, but we can offer it. And the reason for this is so a student isn't completely liable for a device if they do break this device. So we want to give the student the option of purchasing an insurance coverage for $20 instead of paying a whole $218 for a device. And they can purchase an optional $20 insurance coverage, which is non-refundable. It just covers the device for the entire school year. And that would be paid to the business office. And that's just, to cover that device. So, but as a school district, we are obligated to give every student at Pinyon Unified School District a device if we have it, and they do request for it. So every student at Pinyon Unified School District, if they want one, they can check out a brand new Chromebook from the district office here at Pinyon Unified. We just want them to know that they are going to be liable for that device if they do not return it or they break it. And that's what this insurance coverage is for. This is just to give them the option to purchase this insurance coverage for the device. On the back end, we did purchase it to cover all devices. We did purchase the insurance coverage. This would just kind of be reimbursing the district so we can use those funds in other areas. We did pay the $17,000 to, I believe, school device coverage to cover every Chromebook. So this is just an optional coverage, optional fee. It's not, every student isn't required to purchase it. It's just something that we want to offer. So that's kind of and you do have the quote sheets on the 3 companies we looked into, and that was the cheapest, was $20 per device. So if you have any questions.
This is what the students would pay. They would pay $20. John, can you mute yourself again? Because we're getting feedback. Thank you. So students have the option to pay. Students would have the option to pay the $20 because when they sign out the Chromebook, if they get one from us, they are liable for that Chromebook. They have to return it in working condition. What this does is if they pay the $20, then if something happens to that Chromebook, the company takes care of everything. It's like, it's kind of like car insurance. If you have an accident, the car insurance pays for the repairs or replacement. So this is really giving the families or the student the option of paying $20 up front for this insurance coverage. And then if anything happens to the Chromebook that they've checked out, they just file that claim. The company fixes or replaces the Chromebook, and that's all they had to do was the $20. Otherwise, if they said, no, I don't want to pay the $20, I don't want the insurance, if something happened to the Chromebook, they'd have to pay, I think, $220 or something to replace the Chromebook, or they would have to pay the repair fee. So it really, $20, it really is a good deal. It covers about everything. Anything that could happen to that Chromebook while they have it in their possession for $20, it will take care of that, and really keeps them off the hook.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and motion to approve this item since it's an optional item.
I'll second that motion.
Mark,
And Chris, next time,
Mark, second.
next time we know that we're going to be issuing laptops or things like that. I know in the past, it already came as a package. Make sure that happens next time. The insurance thing and everything. Kind of having to do this, from the back end, kind of. I guess in terms of parents, budgeting for what they have. So next time, just present this whole thing as a package. I know in the past, Mr. Huxhole used to present everything as a whole package.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. So Tommy, you motioned, and Mark, you seconded, correct? So
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard, Bessie called for the vote, so Tommy and Gary and Mark, if you're there, you vote in favor?
This
Aye.
is Board Member Little. I vote yes.
Tommy?
Gary said yes, and Tommy said yes, I believe, too.
Okay. Okay. So it's 5 in favor, 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
McCabe
Motion-
vote.
Tommy, you're kind of breaking up again. We can't- Tommy, can you hear me? You're kind of breaking up again when you're talking.
Chris, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yes. So then, yes.
Arizona State Boards Association, that's all it says. Is that for the law conference or? Yes. Legislative? Okay.
This, so this, Madam President, members of the board, this is to select the delegate and the alternate for the delegate assembly, which is on that Saturday of the law conference. So if you're planning to, you don't have to attend the law conference to be the delegate or to attend the delegate assembly, because the delegate assembly is actually on the Saturday. But basically, our district needs to have the board needs to appoint a delegate who will speak for the Pinion board and vote for the Pinion board, and then a delegate just in case the person can't join on Saturday. So of the 5 of you, basically we need who's available for that Saturday, and there just needs to be a motion and a second to appoint the delegate and the alternate.
Chris, I'm back on. I got kicked off just right when I was trying to explain.
Oh, okay. So if you've heard all that, basically where we're at, Bessie just asked you, Tommy, if you were available on that Saturday to be the delegate or the alternate. I don't know, Gary or Mark, if you're available. It's Saturday,
That's on the
September.
next Saturday. Is that the 12th?
It is, the delegate assembly is on Saturday, September 12th. So once we send your information to ASBA, then you would get the meeting link and everything. So you'd be able to click in and join that meeting.
I would say I don't mind. I'm on the nomination committee again this year with ASBA. So I don't mind going into the delegate assembly.
Okay, maybe you could come over here and sit in this room.
Well, you can do it from anywhere. As long as you have an internet connection, you can join in on the conference from anywhere.
It's easier if you're near Pinion town, you get a good internet connection. But we do get cut off. It's hard to get on. Okay. What makes a motion second?
Yeah, you need to have a motion for who the delegate is going to be and then who is the alternate. So if Tommy's available and the board accepts that, he can be the delegate on Saturday, but you still, ASBA would still like an alternate in case for some reason Tommy can't be there, that the alternate could be part of it. So I don't know if somebody else is available to be the alternate on that Saturday or.
Yeah, I have a newborn grandchild. I'm expected to work on those 2 days. I mean, on the weekends and holidays. That's my.
Well, as long as there's a delegate, that's probably okay. I mean, if there isn't somebody else available, as long as Tommy's available to be the delegate, that's okay. The alternate is just a backup in case Tommy can't be there for some reason.
I want to go ahead and motion to appoint, for Tommy McKay as the delegate for the ASBA, long conference.
The delegate assembly.
Okay. We don't know who can be an alternate. Gary, can you be an alternate?
Yeah. Yeah, I can be.
Oh, great.
Oh,
Put that in your motion.
Have Mr. Gary Grandson as the alternate.
Okay, I'll go ahead and second that motion. If there's no other question, all those in favor say aye.
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 This is board member Little, vote yes.
Okay, 5 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to the next item.
Madam President, members of the board, the next item then would be, I need to go back and find the agenda. So the next item would be a motion to go into executive session if you felt the need to go into executive session for any of the personnel items. We don't have an executive session notice back from Wanda Foghorn. Joyce, do we have Wanda Foghorn's? No. We don't have an executive session notice back returned from Wanda Foghorn or from Jefferson Bend, so we can't go into executive session for those items. But basically, just to run through these quickly for you to decide, Wanda Foghorn was an emergency certified teacher. She completed her requirements and now is moving to a standard certification, so congratulations to Ms. Foghorn. But that does change her contract placement and salary, so that's why it's back before the board. Hiring a health aide, which is 8.2, 8.3 is a bus driver trainee. 8.4 is resignation of Jefferson Ben, who is our auto teacher. His CTE certificate expired, which is basically a breach of contract, so he chose to resign. And then 8.5 is hiring a new custodian.
I want to go into executive session on the hire of Janet Gilmore.
Which I want to,
Janet Gilmore?
Yes.
Okay. So do we have the executive session?
wait. We don't have an executive session.
8.3.
In 8.3, she didn't return her executive session notice, so I don't know what your question is. I might be able to answer it at open session. ESS Health Aid. I'm sorry, I didn't see it on the agenda. Janet Gilmore, we don't have an executive session notice for her, so we can't go into executive session. Is it a question that can be answered in open session?
No? Did you hear that one?
I'm sorry, Mark, did you hear me? We don't have executive session notice for Janet
Oh,
Gilmore. She
yeah,
didn't.
no, I just wanted to say that I do have some reserves and some information on that employee because she was an employee at Rough Rock.
Oh, well, then what, because I guess what I would recommend then is if maybe to just motion to table that item, or you could motion to deny that item. I mean, that's, but yeah, we don't have the executive session notice returned from her, so we can't really go into executive session and discuss it.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna motion to deny, but that was the reason why I wanted to go into executive session. But if she doesn't have her executive session notice, then I would recommend to table.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's just her. Angelica Sandoval. Well, I mean, we're still going to do each item one by one unless you wanted to just motion to do everything at once. But we're just talking about going into executive session here. So we don't have an executive session notice on that one. If there's no other questions, then we would skip executive session and just go to 8.1.
Okay, let's do 8.1.
Chris, what position is Foghorn? What position is she getting?
Certified, she's an, sorry, I keep changing my microphone here, just give me. Wanda Foghorn's an elementary teacher. She was an emergency certified teacher at the elementary, and she's completed all her requirements and has her full ADE certificate. So we're just basically switching her contract from an emergency teacher contract, because there's a pay difference, to a standard contract and adjusting her salary. She's already been an employee.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Motion second to hire her under the regular contract for certified teacher.
Correct, because it's a change in the contract and salary amount, the board has to approve that.
Okay, I'll go ahead and motion to offer Juanita Foghorn a teacher contract for school year 2021, effective September 3, at the salary of $47,550, which is BA step 4.
I'll go ahead and second that motion with the correction of the first name being Wanda.
You motion, Tommy seconds the motion.
Okay, the motion is second. Any other question? If none, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Board Member Little, I vote yes.
Okay, 5 in favor, 0 opposed, motion is carried. Next
Board
one,
Member McCabe would like to motion to approve 8.2, number 1, Angelica Sandoval, and to table Janet Gilmore.
okay, if the step coded, All right, is there a second?
I would like
Second on
to,
that.
I would like to entertain an amendment motion or a motion to the main motion. And my motion would be to approve the first individual and to deny the second individual.
So basically it's a substitute motion then, is what you're saying, is to, instead of approve and table, your substitute motion is to approve and deny.
Yes, my motion is to approve the first individual and to deny the second.
Okay, then we have to vote on the substitute motion. The
Well, you
first
need-
one was,
Well, you have to have a second on the substitute
oh,
motion first.
we need a second to the second motion, substitute motion. Is there a second to the substitute motion? Which would we approve the first person and deny the second person? No?
Go ahead and second on that.
No, wait, I think, Gary, did you just second that?
Yes, I'll second on that.
Okay, so Gary seconds the substitute motion. So there's a
Okay.
motion and a second. So now there's a vote on the substitute motion, which is to approve Angelica Sandoval and to deny Janet Gilman.
The other one was table the other, Janet Gilmore, okay.
Yeah.
So, the substitute motion calls for, the motion is to offer the contract to Angelica Sandoval at step 1, $13.50, that's her wage, and deny the number 2, which is Janet Gilmore. So those that are in favor of this motion, the substitute motion, say aye.
Board Member Little, I vote yes.
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Tommy voted aye.
Okay. So 1, 2, 3, all the men folks voted in favor of the second motion, substitute motion. Okay,
How did you and Ramona vote? No or abstain, or what's your vote?
I kind of like the first motion because that we're giving Jenny Gilmore a chance. She needs a background study. Anyway, so I'll go ahead and oppose the substitute motion. Okay.
So then the final vote, just to clarify in the minutes, the final vote is 3 in favor, 2 opposed.
So the motion is carried.
Motion is carried for the substitute motion, which is to hire Angelica Sandoval and to deny Janet Gilmore. So I just want to be sure we got it correct in the minutes. Okay.
Okay. So the motion is carried with 3 in favor, 2 opposed. Going to the next item, 8.3, which is discussion and possible action to approve the hire of bus driver trainee for school year 2021. Which we
Josana.
Josana Yellow Hair, we gave a grade 1, step 1 at $13 wage.
I'd like to go ahead and motion to approve Josana Yellow Hair, grade 1, step 1 at $13 for bus driver training.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second on that.
That's Gary.
Gary? Gary seconds the motion. Any discussion? Again, so all those in favor say aye.
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 Board Member Little, I vote yes.
Okay, 5 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you. Moving to the next one, 8.4. Discussion and possible action to approve the resignation of Mr. Jefferson Ban, Kenyon High School automotive teacher, effective to be, well, it's already gone. To be
What?
effective August 7th.
That, I'm using, just so everybody can hear me. The reason it's August 7th is that's the day his certificate expired. That's the reason he's resigning, is his Arizona certificate expired. As an emergency certified CTE teacher, he had 3 years to meet all the requirements. Those requirements were not met, so ADE he no longer has a valid or certificate or qualifies, which voids his contract. So he chose to resign, and the August 7th is the date that his certificate expired. So that's why it's August 7th. It's not for any disciplinary reason, and it's possible that Mr. Ben will reapply to be a bus driver or substitute teacher or something else. It's just his certificate expired, which is why he's, yeah.
Okay, is there a motion and second?
I'll go ahead and motion to
I'll motion to approve on it.
Gary,
approve the resignation of Jefferson Ben, Kenyon High School automotive teacher.
okay. We had,
I guess I'll second.
okay, I was gonna say Gary motioned and Tommy seconded then.
All right. Okay, any other? It's a motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Board Member Little, I vote yes.
Okay. Okay, that will be 5 in favor, 0 opposed, motion is carried. Thank you. Next item, 8.5, discussion and possible action to hire the following for custodian positions. So it would be, school year 2020, 2021. They are, just one.
Just the one, Bryson Joe.
Bryson Joe, yeah. Grade 3, September, step 15. I'm sorry, let me go back. Grade 3, step 3 at $15.
I'll go ahead and motion to approve item 8.5, Bryson Joe for custodial position, grade 3, step 3 at 15 an hour.
And I'll second on that.
Okay, Gary seconds the motion. Any other question or discussion? Okay, no way. All those in favor say aye.
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 Board Member Little, I vote yes.
Okay. Thank you. Who wants to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second on that.
Ramona seconds to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Board Member Little,
Aye.
I vote yes.
Okay. So she can. Meeting has been adjourned. Here's my grandma.
We'll see you guys around. Stay safe.
Take care of yourself.
Oh, you too. Take care of yourself.
And just as signing out, going back, I think I'm projecting myself. I just wanted to show the masks that we got that have the Pinion Eagles on them. So that's what everybody's going to get. Students, staff, board members all get the Pinion Eagle logo cloth mask. So thank you all for attending. Everybody that was on YouTube Live, thank you. And we will see you.
Can we get your shirts too?
And what?
Can we get those shirts too?
Oh, like the one I'm wearing? This one? Yeah, we can look into getting shirts as well. So, okay, well, thank you all. I'm going to end the meeting and stop the live broadcast. So thank you all that attended, and thank you, board members. Have a wonderful evening.